Yeah. Kirk Kennedy off the late edition. Man, I've had a long day. Long day. I tell you what, if I hadn't made this one post 100 days challenge and trying to do it, it would have been a no for today, right? But I said I would do it. I'm gonna try my best to do it. So far, this is day 22 out of 100. So I'm encouraged by that. So I don't even know if the people who watch me are on right now on YouTube. And that's okay if you're not. I'm not offended. But this is a late one for me. But hey, you do what you gotta do. I'm still here doing it. All right. So this is day 22 of 100 days. Welcome to CNN. I'm Kirk Kennedy. I'll be your host. Let's go in. So I've been thinking about this a lot. Especially with all right. So a few years ago in the culture, there was a lot of, there was a book called The Coddling of the American Mind. And the author was a psychologist who basically said that the culture that we live in is people are coddling their children. Like there's this sort of, he was talking about the need uh for people to like have safe spaces. Like he was referencing when you go to like colleges are now like not letting kids engage with other ideas, but in effect keeping them from having to engage in maybe conservative ideas or something like that. They needed safe spaces. There's this idea of mental health. I want to talk about that in a different video. But it's been made. I've been thinking about this a lot. And then you figure, with the sexual acronym community, and particularly the letter T, that's been really, what's interesting about the LGBT, right? That sexual acronym community. What's interesting about that community is that the L and the G actually, like, they fought for their rights, as they call them, their rights, but they did it more so by letting you see like that they've been victimized long enough, so to speak. But the T, which I think is interesting, the T is more aggressive and more forcing you to approve of their lifestyle, or they'll physically attack you. And I think that's partly why the T's are not going to win because of that. But I have been thinking about, like, how do, as believers, like, so those of us of the Christian tradition who are not going to agree to change people's, you know, the scientific, biological, biblical way to understand sexuality, because some people will be offended. I would say, like, how do we navigate in this culture? And I've watched over the years as what they call the left, right, or the woke, like, demanding safe space from ideas that rival their own. I've also watched believers do the same thing, but a lot of the ideas were more like political. So you're taking up these political ideas. But if we're being honest, we're living in a cultural climate where we are, for the first time, I could be wrong in this, right? But I think I'm old enough to make this claim. American Christianity right now, Christians in America, in our nation, this is the first time that in my lifetime that I've seen, like, wow, persecution is happening for people who believe in Jesus because you're a Christian. Now, we know about this in other countries. We call them martyrs sometimes and different things. But for the most part, Christianity in America has been suffer free. Now, there's been suffering because people have, you get cancer, a loved one gets cancer, or someone dies, or you have difficult season in marriage. I'm not saying there's no suffering, but there's a difference between suffering, I'm a Christian who suffers, and I'm suffering because I'm a Christian, right? There's a difference, because all people suffer, but some people suffer because they're a Christian. And I would say in my lifetime, this is the first time, this particular era within the last probably 10 years, more so since gay marriage was passed, the Obergefell case of the Supreme Court in 2015. This is the first time that Christians are really being persecuted on some level for their faith. And it's not even like other countries where you're getting locked up, but a sense where it's not comfortable to be a Christian. Now you can get canceled. You can get demonetized if you do like YouTube. You can get whatever it is, right? There's a lot of pushback. And it's the first time in America. And so I've seen a lot of believers react to that through the lens of politics and wanting to change policy, sort of to kind of protect themselves. And I know some people have actually been afraid that if they don't have these particular policies or politicians in place, that their faith is going to be attacked and they're going to be attacked and not going to be able to flourish. And so I've been thinking about this a lot, and it made me think about Lot, like Lot himself in Genesis. Abraham and Lot are relatives. And it made me think about it. And I'm doing a series at my church called the Supernatural Storyline of the Bible. So I was able to reference this particular chapter, but there's some verses here that have really, I've been thinking about these a lot in light of the cultural climate. And I wonder if many believers, genuine professors of Jesus Christ, I wonder if they've forgotten like these verses because there's so much, erratic. People have become erratic and almost manic about, my rights are like the constitutional rights, right? And it's like, man, the Lord may let the constitutional rights go to the wayside. Like that's not our Constitution is not the Declaration. It's not a document. Our Constitution is 66 books, right? Called the Scriptures. But there are a couple passages, just a brief section in 2 Peter 2 that I just feel like I wonder if believers think about this a lot. And if not, then we should think a lot about Lot. Here's what he says, 2 Peter 2. And if he rescued righteous Lot, like listen to this, greatly distressed by the sensual conduct of the wicked, okay? Oid their destruction. I'm not sure why it says oid. Suffering wrong as the wage for their wrongdoing, they count it pleasure, right? So destroyed in their destruction. Then he says this, then the Lord knows how to rescue the godly from trials and to keep the unrighteous under punishment until the day of judgment. So I thought about this because I think about like Lot, right? If you think about Lot, just biblically speaking, so Lot was in Sodom and Gomorrah. And what we know of Lot, we know the story in Genesis 18 and 19. But you hear Peter reflecting on that. This is what he says about Lot. He was greatly distressed by the sensual conduct of the wicked, right? So here's a guy who believes in God, right? Is struggling because he's in a cultural framework where these people don't believe in God. And a lot of the ways that they don't believe in God is through their sexual expression. So we live in a culture today where people don't believe in God. And a lot of the ways they don't believe in God is through their sexual expression. And so he was righteous, but he was greatly distressed, like it bothered him, right? What I think is interesting, and again, this isn't the point of the narrative, but what I think is interesting is that we don't get a picture that Lot was trying to leave. In fact, even when the angels came and said, get out of here, it was difficult for Lot to go. And it's not because it's clear that it says he was greatly distressed. So it's not like Lot was in love with the city or was unaffected by the sexuality of what he was seeing. He was greatly distressed. It was that Lot just didn't feel the need to have a safe space from the culture. And Lot had children. We know that he offered up his daughters to the men who wanted to rape the angels, right? So again, Lot had a family. We know he had 2 daughters. He had a family, a wife in this city that was sensual, which is sexual, and he was greatly distressed. So it just made me think, and then the point that Peter's getting in 2 Peter 2:9 is this. Then the Lord, so if Lot, then the Lord can do that. Lot can be there, right? And be in a city, in a culture, in a country that is surrounded by, he's oppressed on every side, right? It's crazy, like the kind of immorality that he's watching. It says, and the Lord knows how to save the godly from trials, right? So, and to keep the unrighteous under punishment. I think about those of us who are of the Christian tradition, like myself, and I think we are living in an unprecedented time for many of us for two reasons. One, there is a there is a forcing of sexuality that we must approve of, right? The difference between like the civil rights movement is that we demanded rights because we had been forcibly and then legally denied those basic fundamental rights that are intrinsic to what it means to be in America. But we didn't use violence. Even guys like Malcolm X, who would be like the Nation of Islam, an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, you can't find any credible data of the Nation of Islam attacking white people or the country. You can find some of the Black Panthers, but they were legally allowed to have guns. They were allowed to have firearms, and sometimes they shot back against the injustice of the police. Like Black people, for the most part, did not force people. We did not say, if you don't approve of us, we're going to be violent, right? But you see, the trans community, this is what they're doing. They will try to hurt you. And largely the people that they'll hurt are believers like us. So we are living in an unprecedented time as Christians where one, we're being told by other people who profess to be Christians that what we believe the Bible says about particular things like sexuality is wrong and it's causing people harm. Like this is unprecedented in redemptive history. And then also it's unprecedented because we've lived as Christians for a long time with essentially a suffer-free salvation. And not that there's no suffering. All of us could say what ways that we've suffered and the Lord brought us through, but suffer-free in the sense that we are not suffering because we believe in Jesus, but now we are. And so I want to encourage you, brothers and sisters, if you're like me of the Christian tradition and you're looking at your culture, let me say two things. One, the answer is not politics. The answer, I'm not saying vote your conscience, but don't lose your conscience for your vote. The answer is not politics. And the reason why, primarily, it's not that their policies aren't better sometimes, it's that they're unregenerate. So these people will only do things that serve their real motive, and their real motive is not the glory of God. So Christians will fight over which unregenerate non-Christians we should trust more. And sometimes you trust unregenerate Christians more than actual Christians, which sometimes it is what it is. But that's not our hope. But the other thing I think we should know from this particular passage, right? So here it is. Lot greatly distressed by the conduct of the wicked. And then you have God is able to rescue the godly from trials. I don't know if we are going to be able to escape the sensuality of the wicked. And I don't know if you're going to be able, I don't know if we're going to be able to be escape from being greatly distressed. I don't think that's always God's plan. I don't. So pass whatever laws you want, vote for whoever you want to, but just keep in mind the people that you're putting in office are often unregenerate non-Christians who, if the tides turns and it benefits them, they're going to all of a sudden agree to the things that you don't agree with, that you put them in office for. I think we need to sometimes just realize, hey, listen, God knows how to rescue the godly from trial. He knows how to keep people like you and I who want to glorify him. He knows how to keep us. But we may live in cultures where we're distressed. We're distressed by the culture, the things that we see in our nation, the things that we see in our neighborhoods, the things that we're distressed by watching. I don't understand why drag queens need to read to children in the library. Apart from, I get it. I think grooming is there. I don't understand why that is necessary. Why does that matter? I don't understand why I need to be an ally for you. So what? Live your life. I don't care. Live your life and do whatever you want to do. Why do I have to be an ally? I didn't force you to accept me because I was Black, right? So again, I just someone do violence on you if you're racist towards me. It's like, I mean, yeah, that people did that, but it wasn't a movement. It wasn't a cause. But as a believer, I think sometimes we have to be careful to not assume that God doesn't want us to be greatly distressed in a culture where we're distressed by the wickedness. It's quite possible that God says, no, I'm not taking you out of it. Persevere in the midst of that. Because for some of us, that's persecution. You've lived a comfortable, suffer-free salvation life, and then you go to spend eternity with Jesus suffer-free. If Isaiah 53 is accurate, which I believe that it is, it says that Jesus is a man of sorrows, right? If Jesus is a man of sorrows, then being like Jesus means we're going to experience some sorrow in this life. And I think sometimes we just have a more theological than a theological understanding of our place. God knows how to rescue the godly from trials, brothers and sisters. But rescuing you doesn't always mean giving you a safe space or changing laws so that you feel more comfortable. It could just mean God's going to continue to give you faith, and you're not going to acquiesce to what's happening in the culture just to do it. You're not believing the cultural definition of love versus the biblical one. We need to be like Lot a lot, where we're just like, I'm greatly distressed by what I see, but I'm willing to engage. Lastly, Paul did the same thing in Acts 17. I think Jesus' Sermon on the Mount is the greatest sermon ever taught, the greatest sermon ever. I think the second greatest gospel treatise is Acts 17. Paul, it says Paul, right? He goes into the Areopagus, Mars Hill, right? And Paul goes there, and Paul, it says he's greatly distressed by all the idolatry. Read Acts 17 when you're done watching this video, or as you're watching it. Don't stop watching the video. Don't do that yet. Don't do that. What you need to do is hit the like button. Hit the like button. If you don't know the Lord, if you don't hit the like button, the Lord is going to reject you. When you stand before God, your name will not be written in the Lamb's Book of Life because you don't hit the like button. Now you know I'm playing. But there's probably some pastors out there who teach that. Stay away from them folks. But I think when Acts 17, Paul says, you like how I just came right back to it? You can't even teach that, bro. No, I'm just playing. But in Acts 17, Paul came back, right? But he says, look, he was greatly distressed by the idolatry that he saw. And then he says to the people, right? You would think now, if it were Paul today, these Christians would get up there and start calling people heretics and all that. Man, Paul got up there. Read Acts 17. Paul got up there and said, I see that you are a religious people. He encouraged them first and then said, let me tell you about the unknown God that you have on that, written right there. Let me tell you who that unknown God is. But Paul was greatly distressed, but he was willing to engage. Brothers and sisters, we need to be like Lot a lot. And we may not be able to escape the sensuality. I don't think the Lord wants us to shrivel back and act like we're so grossed out and so offended and so fearful of losing our rights that we end up acting as if the thing that we need to do is to get out of here. And the Lord might be like, nah, Lot, I can keep you godly in the midst of perpetual ungodliness. We need to be like Lot a lot. And again, we need to be like Jesus. You know what I'm saying? It's always one. Of course, we don't need to be like Lot and that we want to be imitators of God. My point is that Lot was able to, in a sensual society, he was able to honor the Lord. You and I need to be able to do that and willing. Paul was able to be, even though his soul was struggling with all the idolatry that he saw, he was willing to engage. Not engage he didn't appeal to Rome and say, hey, let's change some laws so these people get out of here. He appealed to people. And he knew that there might be suffering for it. There's some of us, we need to suffer because we're Christians. And we're not going to do it unless we're telling people why they need to be Christians and believe in Jesus. It's really fascinating time that we live in. But what do I know? What do I know? I'm just working out this new headband look and trying to be big and sexy at the same time. Only my wife really, man. Only she cares, honestly. But I do. Don't hate me because I'm beautiful. Remember that song, I'm too sexy for my shirt? That was the dumbest song ever. You were too sexy. You shouldn't even put that dumb song out. I have no idea why I'm saying this right now, because the last thing I'm trying to do is be that. I still got to finish the message. But you know what? I said I would do a video, and I did it. I did it. Daggone it, I did it. And now it's time to not do it. Appreciate you guys. Hit the like and subscribe button. Thanks for the channel is growing slowly. I appreciate you. I'm enjoying this challenge. Go back and look at all the days that you haven't seen. Day 22 of 100. I'm Kirk Kennedy. This was CNN. See you tomorrow for day 23. I definitely got something to talk about. The next couple of days, I got something to talk about. We'll get there. All right. Grace and peace, y'all.